Every secret society, every hidden ritual, every underground meeting you've ever heard of exists because of a forgotten god who ruled the Roman Empire from the shadows. For 3 centuries, soldiers and merchants gathered in underground temples to worship Mithras through blood sacrifice and cosmic mysteries. This wasn't just another ancient religion. It was Christianity's greatest rival that nearly became the empire's official faith. But here's what makes this incredible. Everything happened in absolute secrecy. No sacred text survived. Yet this hidden god almost conquered the ancient world through whispered passwords and bonds stronger than blood. The morning star fades above the Hindu Kush as horsemen gather at the mountain pass, their breath mingling with mist that rises from valleys where no temple has yet been built, no city founded, no empire imagined. These riders speak in tongues that will birth Sanskrit and Avestan, their prayers ascending toward twin gods who watch from opposite horizons, Mitra greeting the dawn while Varuna guards the dying night. The bronze discs sewn to their leather armor catch first light like scattered coins, though 1,000 years must pass before any human will conceive of minting metal into currency. They are the Aryans, the noble ones, whose migration will fracture into rivers of peoples, each carrying divine names that transform with every mountain crossed, every river forded, every generation born beneath foreign stars. In their songs, Mitra stands as witness to every oath sworn between men, his 1,000 ears hearing promises whispered in darkness, his 10,000 eyes watching contracts sealed with blood and salt. The warriors who invoke him before battle understand that victory belongs not to the strongest, but to those who keep their word, whose allegiance binds tighter than bronze chains. When chieftains clasp hands over treaty fires, they call upon Mitra to remember their agreement, to punish any who would break faith with suffering that extends beyond death into whatever realm awaits oathbreakers. This is not yet the mystery god who will demand bull's blood in underground chambers, but already he carries the seeds of transformation, the potential for becoming something greater than a divine contract enforcer. The great splitting comes gradually, like ice breaking on a frozen river, crackling first in hairline fractures before the massive sheets separate and drift apart. Some clans turn their horses southward, descending through passes where the Indus beckons with promises of fertile plains and controllable floods. Others push westward into the Iranian plateau, their wagon wheels carving ruts that will become roads, their temporary camps hardening into settlements that will birth Persepolis and Ecbatana. As distance grows between these cousin peoples, their gods evolve like languages diverging from common roots, each deity adapting to landscapes that demand different forms of worship, different names for the sacred. In the settlements along the Ganges, Vedic priests maintain sacred fires that must never extinguish, their Sanskrit hymns preserving Mitra's original nature, while his worshippers learn to cultivate rice in monsoon-fed fields. The Rig Veda captures him in verses that later scholars will struggle to translate, his essence bound to Varuna in a partnership that maintains cosmic order through complementary opposition. Yet even here, even in these earliest texts that survive like insects in amber, Mitra shows signs of independence, moments when he stands alone as judge and witness, as the god who ensures that morning follows night and that seasons turn in their appointed cycles. But in the highlands of Iran, as the prophet Zoroaster's revolutionary vision spreads like wildfire through communities tired of the old god's bloody demands, Mitra undergoes metamorphosis. The prophet speaks of Ahura Mazda, the wise lord who needs no partners, no equals, no cosmic twins to maintain universal order. The ancient gods must choose, vanish into folklore, or accept diminished roles as yazatas, divine helpers subordinate to the supreme deity. Mithra, his name now taking Persian form, chooses survival through adaptation, becoming the judge of souls, the guardian of cattle, the protector of contracts who serves the wise lord while maintaining distinct identity that priests cannot quite dissolve into monotheistic unity. The Avesta, that collection of sacred texts that Zoroastrian priests will guard through conquests and conflagrations, describes Mithra driving his chariot across heaven's vault, pulled by 4 white horses whose hooves strike sparks that become stars. He rises before the sun, preparing the path for light to follow, his own radiance neither solar nor lunar, but something between, something that belongs to the moment when night surrenders to day. Warriors preparing for battle sing hymns that name him Lord of Wide Pastures, understanding that victory requires more than sharp bronze and strong arms. It demands divine approval that only comes to those who fight with righteousness rather than mere rage. King Artaxerxes II breaks centuries of official silence when he orders his name carved alongside older gods on the palace walls at Susa. The inscription, hammered into stone that will outlast the empire it commemorates, reads, "By the will of Ahura Mazda, Anahita, and Mithra, I built this palace." Those 3 divine names, grouped together like notes in a chord, announce that even Zoroastrian monotheism must accommodate older powers, must recognize that some gods refuse to fade into theological footnotes. The king who authorizes this inscription understands that his subjects' loyalty depends upon acknowledging the full pantheon of their devotions, that political power requires religious flexibility. Persian soldiers preparing for campaign against enemies whose names history will forget led white horses to mountain shrines, their sacrificial blades cutting throats with precision learned from generations of ritual practice. The blood that flows into carved channels feeds earth that has drunk such offerings since before memory, while the meat roasts on spits that turn above fires tended by priests whose chants blend Zoroastrian prayers with older invocations. They believe Mithra rides with them into battle, his presence guaranteeing victory for those who fight with honor, who show mercy to surrendering enemies, who keep their word even when breaking it would bring advantage. The Feast of Merigan arrives with autumn's cooling breath, the celebration rivaling even Nowruz in the magnificence of its ceremonies. Noble families compete to present the most elaborate gifts to their king, understanding that generosity during Mithra's festival ensures prosperity through winter months when trade slows and armies rest. From the Caspian shore to the Persian Gulf, families gather around tables bright with pomegranates and wine, raising their toasts for protection over contracts, marriages, and alliances. Children receive coins and sweets while learning that every promise is watched, and even the smallest betrayal carries consequence. Common people dance around bonfires that transform night into flickering day, their circles widening as more celebrants join the ancient steps that supposedly mirror the celestial dance of stars around the cosmic axis. Young women wear their finest robes, understanding that marriages proposed during Merigan carry special blessing, that Mithra himself witnesses vows exchanged during his festival. The smoke from these fires carries prayers for honest dealings in the coming year, for protection from those who would cheat in business or betray in friendship, for the prosperity that comes to those who honor their obligations. In the mountain caves where shepherds shelter their flocks from winter storms, rougher ceremonies unfold away from official observation. Here, Mithra receives worship in forms that would disturb Zoroastrian orthodoxy, rituals that preserve pre-Reformation practices involving blood and wine, darkness and sudden illumination. The men who participate in these mysteries speak of them only to other initiates, creating networks of trust that transcend tribal and territorial boundaries. They recognize each other through subtle signs, a particular way of clasping hands, certain words spoken with specific emphasis, shared knowledge that binds them tighter than blood relation. These are the roots that will grow through centuries, spreading beneath the surface of official religion like underground rivers that emerge in unexpected springs. The God who begins as cosmic judge and contract guardian carries within his divine essence the potential for transformation into something the Indo-Iranian horsemen could never imagine. A savior deity whose mystery will captivate Roman soldiers, whose blood sacrifice will promise eternal life, whose underground temples will challenge Christianity for the soul of an empire. But that metamorphosis lies centuries in the future, beyond the imagination of Persian priests who maintain his festivals and warriors who invoke his name before battle. For now, in this age when bronze gives way to iron and tribal federations evolve into true kingdoms, Mithras stands at the threshold between night and day, between old and new, between the gods who demand blood and those who prefer prayer. His white horses wait in stables built from celestial light, ready to pull his chariot across heaven's vault when darkness ends and morning begins. That eternal moment of transition when all things become possible, when contracts are sealed and oaths are sworn, when the world holds its breath before the sun rises and another day begins in the endless cycle that Mithra guards with eyes that never close, ears that never stop listening, and justice that never sleeps. Persepolis is engulfed in fire, cedar beams breaking apart in showers of sparks beneath the same stars that witnessed its creation, while Alexander's soldiers, drunk on victory and wine, dance through the courtyards where Persian monarchs had collected tribute from across 27 lands. A young soldier named Ptolemy stumbles through the smoke-filled throne room, his sandaled feet crunching over scattered gold coins that bear the image of Darius III, now fled eastward like a shadow before dawn. In the royal chambers, where sacred fires once burned perpetually for Ahura Mazda, Greek soldiers tear down silk tapestries to fuel their celebration, unaware that they destroy texts woven into fabric, prayers transformed into patterns that will never again be deciphered. Yet in the morning, when wine-sick conquerors wake among ashes of the empire they've destroyed, something unexpected begins. The same warriors who burned libraries discover mountain shrines where local priests maintain rituals older than memory, where cave walls bear carved reliefs of a youth in a Phrygian cap slaying a cosmic bull. Nicanor, a cavalry officer from Pella, watches these ceremonies with eyes that recognize something familiar in the foreign god. Here stands a deity like their own Apollo, forever young, associated with the sun's journey, yet different enough to intrigue minds hungry for mysteries that Greek Olympians no longer provide. The fusion begins not through imperial decree, but through 10,000 small encounters, each one shifting divine boundaries, like rivers changing course grain by grain. In garrison towns from Babylon to Bactria, Greek soldiers marry Persian women whose dowries include devotions to gods the conquerors cannot name. Children born from these unions learn prayers in both languages, honoring Zeus Oromastes at public festivals, while maintaining older loyalties in household shrines, where Mithras' image presides over family contracts, marriage vows, and business agreements sealed with wine and witness. In the mountain kingdom of Commagene, where eagles circle peaks that pierce clouds pregnant with snow, King Antiochus I conceives a monument to surpass all previous attempts at divine synthesis. Atop Nemrut Dagi, 8,000 feet above valleys where trade routes converge like veins feeding a heart, He commands construction that will marry east and west in stone too massive for time to erode. The workers who haul these blocks up impossible slopes sing in languages that blend Persian and Greek, their rhythms synchronized to movements that transform human labor into architectural prayer. The colossal heads that crown this mountain sanctuary stand 30 feet tall, their faces carved with features that belong to neither culture exclusively, but to some new race of divine beings, born from collision of civilizations. Apollo, Mithra, Helios. Hermes gazes eastward, with eyes that will watch sunrises for 2 millennia, his expression capturing that moment of serene power when night surrenders to day. Beside him, Zeus Oromastes grips thunderbolts that blaze like sacred fire, his beard styled in ways that rival sculptors debate even as they share wine in moments of respite. Antiochus himself sits among these gods, a mortal king declaring divine genealogy that traces back through both Alexander's generals and Darius's satraps. The inscription carved at the monument's base, written in Greek and Persian and Aramaic, proclaims a new theology where bloodlines matter less than synthesis, where power flows not from pure origins, but from ability to unite opposites. He commands priests to weave Greek libations together with sacred fire rites, shaping ceremonies that would appall purists of either lineage yet captivate those weary of strict boundaries. But it is in Cilicia's pirate caves, carved from cliffs that drop straight into wine-dark seas, where the most profound transformation occurs. These maritime outlaws, recruited from every nation that borders the Mediterranean, create brotherhoods that transcend ethnic loyalties through shared danger and mutual dependence. They need gods who understand that survival requires flexibility, that honor among thieves matters more than abstract theology, that bonds forged in extremity run deeper than those inherited through birth. The pirates adapt Persian mysteries for their own purposes, transforming courtly ceremonies into initiation rites that bind crews with secrets worth more than gold. In caves lit by torches that throw dancing shadows on walls painted with celestial maps, they enact dramas of divine bull-slaying that promise victory over chaos, triumph over death, brotherhood that extends beyond the grave. No longer just Apollo of the Greeks or the ancient Mithra, the figure worshipped becomes Mithras, the name itself carrying a Latin echo of Roman worlds, yet to unfold. A pirate captain named Xenicetes, whose fleet controls shipping lanes from Cyprus to Rhodes, maintains a sanctuary where the ceiling depicts the cosmos in motion. The zodiac painted there doesn't follow Greek or Persian traditions exclusively, but creates new patterns where heroes from both cultures pursue destinies that interweave like rope spliced from different fibers. His crews, drawn from Syrian ports and Greek islands, from Anatolian mountains and Egyptian deltas, swear oaths before this synthetic heaven, their loyalty sealed with rituals that borrow from every mystery tradition the Mediterranean has produced. During initiation ceremonies, conducted in absolute darkness, save for single flames that represent cosmic fire, newcomers learn passwords that will identify them in any port where brothers gather. They witness theatrical recreations of Mithras's birth from rock, his struggle with the sun, his conquest of the bull whose death creates life. These dramas, performed by crews who include deserters from Alexander's armies and refugees from Persian nobility, blend martial traditions from both cultures into warrior mysteries that promise immortality through courage rather than birthright. The sacred meals that follow these initiations serve bread marked with crosses that might reference stars or swords, wine mixed with herbs that induce visions of cosmic ascent through planetary spheres. Participants recline on stone benches, their positions determined by grades of initiation that mirror military ranks while incorporating Persian court hierarchies. They address each other as brother, regardless of origin, creating families of choice that prove more durable than those of blood. In harbors from Cilicia to Crete, merchants observe these pirate ceremonies with curiosity that transforms into participation. The mysteries offer what traditional religions cannot: personal transformation through trials, brotherhood across cultural boundaries, promises of salvation that depend on individual merit rather than inherited status. Sailors who begin as observers find themselves drawn into mysteries that spread through maritime networks faster than any official religion could travel. By century's end, variations of these adapted mysteries appear in ports throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. Each community adds local flavors while maintaining core elements: the bull-slaying scene, the sacred meal, the grades of initiation, the cosmic symbolism. What began as Persian royal ceremony filtered through Greek philosophical interpretation and pirate pragmatism emerges as something entirely new, a mystery religion that will captivate Rome, challenge Christianity, and leave traces in Western esotericism that persist into ages yet unborn. The Roman galley founders in waves tall as temples, while lightning illuminates Cilician pirates swarming over its rails, their curved daggers finding gaps in bronze armor as naturally as water finds cracks in stone. Marcus Claudius, a tribune returning from Syrian service, watches his men die one by one until strong hands drag him below deck where darkness smells of tar and terror. His captors speak a dozen languages badly, their leader a scarred Lycian who counts ransom values with the practiced eye of a slave trader, deciding which Romans will bring gold from families and which will pull oars until their hands bleed and their backs break. In the cave where they chain him to wait for negotiations, Marcus discovers mysteries that transform captivity into revelation. The pirates gather at sunset, not as brutal raiders, but as brothers in ceremonies that follow protocols stricter than any Roman military drill. They descend through passages carved from living rock into chambers, where torchlight reveals paintings that seem to move. A youth in Eastern dress plunging his blade into a bull, whose blood becomes stars, whose death becomes life, whose sacrifice promises something that makes these outlaws weep with recognition of truths their prisoners cannot fathom. Rome's streets already echo with foreign devotions that would have horrified Cato and Scipio. Syrian merchants roll drums through the forum while chanting to Atargatis, their goddess who demands castration from her most devoted priests. Egyptian sailors paint their faces blue for Isis, whose midnight mysteries promise resurrection to those who survive her trials. Jews gather in riverside synagogues to worship their invisible God, with songs that need no images, no statues, no temples built by human hands. The Senate alternately forbids and permits these alien rites, their decrees changing with political winds that blow from east to west, carrying scents of incense and revolution. But the stories that Marcus brings back after his ransom arrives, tales of underground temples where pirates become brothers through trials of fire and water, these capture Roman imagination differently. He describes altars stained with bull's blood that never quite washes clean, cosmic maps painted on ceilings where 7 planetary spheres spiral toward immortality, sacred meals where bread and wine transform participants into something more than mortal. His voice drops to whispers when he speaks of passwords that crossed linguistic boundaries, of recognition signals that identified brothers from Britain to Parthia, of loyalty oaths that transcended nationality through mysteries he's sworn never to reveal. In taverns near the Campus Martius, veterans gather to share similar stories brought back from Eastern campaigns. Lucius Servilius describes mountain shrines in Cappadocia where local princes maintain Persian rites adapted for Hellenistic tastes. Gaius Oppius tells of Pontic fortresses where Mithridates' soldiers swore allegiance before altars that depicted the cosmic bull slaying, their loyalty sealed with mysteries that made them fight to the death rather than betray initiated brothers. Each tale adds details to a growing Roman fascination with this Eastern god, who seems to offer what their own tired deities cannot: personal transformation through ordeal, brotherhood through shared secrets, immortality through courage. The traditional Roman pantheon feels increasingly hollow to citizens whose empire spans the known world, yet whose souls hunger for meaning beyond contractual relationships with state-sponsored gods. Jupiter, Optimus, Maximus demands sacrifice, but offers only collective prosperity. Mars promises victory, but only to Roman arms. Vesta maintains the sacred flame, but her virgins remain distant, untouchable, their purity preserving the state while offering nothing to individuals whose lives feel increasingly disconnected from ancient traditions that once provided meaning. When Pompey launches his campaign against Cilician pirates in 67 BC, his strategic brilliance accomplishes in 3 months what previous commanders failed to achieve in decades. His fleet, divided into 13 commands that sweep the Mediterranean like a net drawing closed, captures 20,000 pirates while destroying their bases from Gibraltar to the Levant. Pompey, true to his practical nature, offers pardon to those who lay down arms, relocating them to depopulated towns where their knowledge of the sea supports commerce rather than undermines it. Among the captured pirate strongholds, Roman soldiers discover elaborate underground temples that exceed anything imagination prepared them for. Beneath fortresses that seemed mere military installations, passages descend into artificial caves where every surface bears symbolic meaning. The walls show processionals of figures in Persian dress, carrying torches toward altars where the eternal bull-slaying scene dominates. Ceilings painted midnight blue sparkle with golden stars arranged in patterns that track celestial movements. Stone benches line the walls, where participants reclined for sacred meals, their positions marking hierarchies that mirror military ranks while suggesting spiritual gradations. Marcus Terentius Varro, scholar and admiral in Pompey's fleet, documents these discoveries with the systematic attention that will make his agricultural manuals legendary. He notes how the temples follow consistent patterns despite geographical separation, always underground or cave-like, always oriented east to west, always featuring the same mythological scenes in the same sequence. His sketches preserve details that will influence Roman religious architecture for centuries. The vaulted ceilings that create artificial caves, the raised platforms where mysteries unfolded, the small pools where initiates underwent purification. The 20,000 captured pirates carry their mysteries into Roman society, like seeds that will find fertile soil in military camps and merchant quarters. Settled in Dyme and Soli, in Adana and Malus, they maintain their brotherhoods while adapting to peaceful occupations. Former raiders become harbour masters, who recognize fellow initiates through handshakes that communicate degrees of advancement. Ex-pirates turned merchants establish trade networks where mysteries spread alongside goods, where passwords protect both commercial secrets and sacred knowledge. Rome has conquered the pirates, but absorbed their god, though few yet recognize how deeply these Eastern mysteries will penetrate the empire's spiritual foundations. Beneath a warehouse in Ostia, fish oil and ambitions sour the air, while soldiers sink their shovels into Roman soil, breaking through ancient supports that stand upon Etruscan burials, leaving behind a hollow chamber carved by human hands. Gaius Valerius Maximus, veteran of Germania and Britannia, oversees work that transforms commercial storage into sacred space, his scarred hands directing placement of every stone according to plans he carries in memory rather than written documents. By summer of 70 AD, what began as crude excavation becomes architecture of the soul. 40 feet long, 12 feet wide, vaulted ceiling painted midnight blue with golden stars tracking the constellation patterns on Rome's founding day. At the chamber's eastern end, they install the image that will define a religion, not imported from Persia or copied from pirate caves, but carved by Roman hands for Roman eyes. Mithras plunges his dagger into the cosmic bull's throat while turning his face away, that averted gaze capturing sorrow and determination in proportions that speak to soldiers who've killed for duty rather than pleasure. The sculptor, a freedman named Titus who learned his craft decorating patrician gardens, adds details no Eastern prototype contains. A scorpion attacking the bull's testicles, a snake drinking blood from the wound, a dog lapping at the flow, wheat sprouting from the tail that becomes the moon. Every element carries meaning that initiates will contemplate through 7 grades of advancement, though Titus himself understands only that he's been paid in silver to create images from dreams described by men who speak of visions received in darkness. The exclusivity becomes essential to the appeal. While Christians accept anyone, slaves, women, barbarians who can barely speak Latin, Mithraism restricts itself to free males who can afford initiation fees and swear oaths of secrecy that bind tighter than military discipline. In the Aventine district, Marcus Aurelius Sabinus constructs a Mithraeum beneath his villa that accommodates exactly 30 men, no more, turning away senators' sons when the brotherhood reaches capacity. This artificial scarcity creates desire that spreads through Roman society like fever, each rejection making membership more precious than the gold it costs to achieve. Word spreads through networks that existed before the temples. Soldiers transferred between legions, merchants whose routes span from Britain to Syria, administrators whose careers depend on connections that transcend official hierarchies. In Cologne, a centurion named Lucius Antonius recognizes the password spoken by a Syrian trader and leads him to a Mithraeum hidden beneath the Principia, where the legion's standards rest. In Alexandria, a ship captain initiated in Ostia finds brothers who've never seen Italy, but know the same mysteries, speak the same ritual phrases, understand the same cosmic truths hidden in the bull's death. By Domitian's reign, the capital alone contains 17 Mithraea, each serving different constituencies while maintaining identical mysteries. Beneath the baths of Caracalla, imperial slaves gather after their duties to advance through grades that provide dignity their daily servitude denies. Near the Praetorian barracks, officers meet in a temple funded by their commander, their military rank irrelevant to spiritual hierarchy, where a junior tribune might outrank a general in mysteries that measure courage differently than battlefield glory. In Trans-Tiberim, Syrian merchants maintain a Mithraeum, decorated with imported marble, their wealth purchasing elaborate fixtures, while the mysteries themselves remain unchanged. The same bull dies, the same blood flows, the same transformation promises immortality to those who persevere through trials. The architecture evolves through repetition into perfection. Every Mithraeum follows cosmic blueprint, the entrance in the west where souls descend, the sanctuary oriented eastward where resurrection awaits. Stone benches line both walls, angled so reclining participants face each other across the narrow aisle that represents the cosmic axis. Hidden channels beneath altars carry libations that seem to disappear into earth itself. Lamp niches create dramatic effects, sudden illumination during critical ritual moments, shadows that dance like spirits when oil flames flicker. Some temples include additional chambers where priests prepare, where initiates receive instruction, where ordeals test commitment through experiences that survivors refuse to describe. The sacred meal adapts Persian precedent to Roman taste. Where Eastern ceremonies used hauma, Roman brothers share wine mixed with herbs that induce visions without losing consciousness. The bread bears marks that might represent the sun's rays or the cross of celestial equinoxes. Initiates recline as at secular banquets, but facing the tauroctony that transforms feast into sacrament. They eat bull meat when available, chicken when economy demands, but always with understanding that consumption creates communion, that sharing food sealed with mysteries creates bonds that law cannot break and death cannot sever. Competition with Christianity begins before either religion recognizes the other as rival. Both meet in secret, both promise salvation, both practice ritual meals that transform participants. Yet their methods diverge, like roads that start from the same milestone but lead to different cities. Christians preach openly despite persecution, recording their beliefs in letters copied frantically by scribes who risk execution. Mithrists guard oral traditions, forbidding written doctrine, maintaining variations that allow each Mithraeum slight differences while preserving core mysteries. Christians declare exclusive truth. All other gods are false or demonic. Mithrists happily worship Isis on Tuesday, Mithras on Sunday, sacrifice to Jupiter for imperial ceremonies without sensing contradiction. Rome falls to Mithras not by force of arms, but through the devotion of soldiers, traders, and administrators who sustain its power. The cult spreads like hidden veins through the empire's body, essential though often invisible, promising mysteries of meaning as traditional certainties wash away like salt in storm water. Marcus Valerius steps into darkness beneath his own house on the Aventine Hill, oil lamp trembling in his grip as 40 pairs of eyes turn toward him. This is his first glimpse of the Mithraeum his father spent 3 years constructing, carved from the foundation of their ancestral home, while neighbors remained oblivious to the cosmic theater blooming beneath their feet. The air tastes of frankincense and mystery, thick with secrets that have traveled from Persian mountains to Roman streets. The ceiling curves overhead like night sky made stone, painted midnight blue with golden stars mapping the constellations visible above Rome on her founding day. When Romulus first drew his plow through 7 hills, 7 planetary spheres spiral upward in concentric circles toward the cosmic apex, where Mithras reigns beyond time, each painted disk gleaming with pigments that catch lamplight like captured starfire. The Milky Way streams across the vault in silver dust, while zodiac animals march in eternal procession. The bull forever dying, the scorpion forever striking, the lion forever devouring solar flame. Stone benches line both walls, like theatre seats carved for gods, each slab precisely angled, so reclining initiates face each other across the sacred aisle. The chamber accommodates 40 men at most, an intimate gathering where every face catches oil flame, where whispers carry perfectly, where silence itself becomes prayer. Brothers recline on purple cushions, their white robes gleaming in the flickering light, as wine flows from silver cups and bread breaks with satisfying ceremony. At the eastern end, dominating every sightline like an emperor claiming homage, the tauroctony relief commands absolute attention. Gaius Cornelius, master sculptor from Rhodes, spent 18 months carving this marble universe, not merely decorative but cunningly functional. Hidden channels run through the stone for libations of wine and honey. Secret compartments hold sacred implements, and lamp niches position flames to cast dancing shadows that transform carved figures into living drama. Watch how fire makes Mithras's cape billow in stone wind, how the dying bull's marble eyes seem to blink with final breath, how the scorpion appears to crawl forever toward its eternal target. Beyond the main chamber, additional rooms branch, like arteries from a beating heart. In the apparatorium, priests prepare in sacred privacy, donning masks of raven, lion, and sun that transform mortal Romans into divine messengers. The instruction chamber barely accommodates teacher and student, its walls alive with astronomical charts and geometric diagrams mapping the soul's journey through celestial spheres. Here, fathers whisper the 7 sacred names, trace planetary paths with ivory pointers, and explain why each grade corresponds to cosmic forces beyond mortal understanding. Most mysterious of all lies the ordeal chamber, where courage transforms into wisdom through trials that break weak souls and forge strong ones. A circular pit cut into living rock, 7 feet across and 3 feet deep, waits in perpetual darkness. Here, candidates for the grade of miles crouch, while flames dance overhead and brothers chant prayers in ancient Persian. The stone walls bear stains, chicken blood mixed with pine resin, offerings to powers that demand sacrifice before granting knowledge. What resurrections unfold in this stone womb? What deaths and rebirths echo through its claustrophobic embrace? In Londinium's thriving port, Senator Gaius Classicianus builds his Mithraeum like an imperial palace condensed into sacred space. Italian marble lines the altars, Egyptian sculptures watch from shadowed alcoves, and pottery from Gaul gleams red as fresh blood in the lamplight. Yet the chamber itself measures barely 40 feet long, 12 feet wide, magnificence compressed into intimacy, wealth serving mystery rather than display. Here, British chieftains' sons kneel beside Roman centurions. German auxiliaries share bread with Syrian merchants, all brothers beneath Mithras's eternal gaze. Every detail carries meaning that devotees spend lifetimes contemplating. 7 stars of the Great Bear carved above doorways represent the 7 grades of ascension. Twin torchbearers flank every relief, courts with flame raised high and counterpates with torch inverted, marking sunrise and sunset, birth and death, the eternal cycle Mithras oversees from his cosmic throne. Serpents coil around world eggs while lions devour solar disks. Mysterious letters spell divine names in scripts known only to the initiated. These chambers rise as earthly copies of the cosmic cave, where Mithras first hunted and sacrificed the primordial bull that contained all life. Every Mithraeum becomes a universe compressed into stone, its dimensions calculated to reflect celestial proportions, its orientation aligned with sacred astronomy that Persian magi taught to eager Roman students. To enter is to step outside ordinary time into the eternal moment of creation's sacrifice, where every shared meal echoes that first cosmic feast, where every sworn oath binds the speaker to divine order itself. Across the empire, from British moors to Syrian deserts, these sacred caves multiply like stars appearing at dusk. In each one, the god waits in patient expectation for souls brave enough to surrender earthly comfort for cosmic truth. The architecture stands ready. The mysteries call. Soon will come those willing to descend into sacred darkness and emerge transformed, carrying starlight in their eyes and brotherhood deeper than blood flowing through their veins. Lucius Antonius kneels blindfolded in absolute darkness, hands bound with chicken intestines still warm from sacrifice, while above him a sword hovers inches from his throat. The metal catches no light in this windowless chamber beneath Ostia's grain warehouses, yet he feels its presence like winter wind against his neck. 40 brothers breathe in unison around him, their silence more terrifying than any roar. Then the Father's voice cuts through darkness like bronze through flesh. Stand and taste the sweetness that follows terror. Honey touches his tongue, golden nectar after metallic fear, the first sacrament of mysteries that will remake his soul. He has become Corax, the raven, Mercury's messenger, servant to all higher grades and keeper of none. For 18 months he will serve at holy banquets, carrying messages between temples scattered across the empire, learning the basic prayers and gestures while wearing a raven-beaked mask during ceremonies. His tunic bears Mercury's caduceus embroidered in silver thread, marking him as divine herald, though still earthbound, still crawling rather than soaring. The grade requires perfect humility. During holy meals, ravens serve wine and bread to their betters, lighting oil lamps with hands that tremble from exhaustion, cleaning temple floors with brushes worn smooth by generations of penitents. They memorize the 7 divine names of the god, practice the ritual gestures that summon planetary powers, and learn to identify constellations painted on Mithraeum ceilings. Most crucially, they study the great mystery: why the bull must die so life can flourish, why sorrow and joy intertwine like lovers embracing in cosmic darkness. When Saturn completes 2 circuits of heaven, the raven may petition for elevation to Mithras, the bridegroom, but first comes ordeal that separates wheat from chaff. Veiled like a bride approaching the marriage altar, Lucius undergoes ritual death, in a ceremony that echoes Persephone's descent into Hades. Brothers lower him into the stone pit, while chanting dirges in ancient Persian, earth scattered on his shrouded form until darkness becomes absolute, silence becomes eternity. 3 hours pass, like 3 lifetimes, before hands pull him gasping toward torchlight, newborn from Earth's womb. Now comes the crucial test. They place a golden crown upon his head, symbol of earthly kingship, temporal power, material wealth that corrupts divine vision. The crown weighs heavier than lead, its gemstones glittering with false promises. He must reach up, grasp it with both hands, and thrust it away, while declaring the holy formula: Mithras alone is my crown. Some candidates falter here, seduced by gold's glamour, proving themselves unworthy of deeper mysteries. But Lucius hurls the circlet aside, choosing invisible glory over visible treasure, and becomes the bridegroom wedded to eternal truth, rather than mortal bride. The nymphess serves as temple guardian, maintaining the divine flame that burns perpetually before the altar, mixing wine with water for holy libations, and preparing the bread marked with divine signs for communion meals. His robes shimmer, white as snow on mountain peaks, his veil yellow as dawn light breaking over Persian plateaus. He learns the intermediate prayers, practices more complex ritual gestures, and begins studying the astronomical calculations that govern the calendar. Most importantly, he prepares for the soldier's grade that awaits beyond the next threshold. Miles, the soldier, demands ordeal by fire that tests courage beyond mortal limits. Naked except for a sword belt, the candidate runs between rows of blazing torches, while brothers shout war cries that echo through stone corridors. Brands heated cherry red hover near his flesh, without quite touching, testing nerve rather than inflicting permanent harm, though some emerge with singed hair and scorched eyebrows as badges of devotion. He swears loyalty oaths with a naked blade pressed against his throat, promising to die before betraying the mysteries, to kill before allowing profanation of sacred space. The soldier's initiation culminates when they bind his hands behind his back and offer him a crown identical to the one he rejected as bridegroom. This time, he cannot simply push it away. Bound helpless, he must refuse with words alone, declaring his allegiance to the god while earthly power dangles just beyond reach. The lesson burns deeper than any brand. True strength lies in rejecting strength, authentic power in surrendering power, victory in accepting defeat that paradoxically becomes triumph. As Miles, he serves as temple's defender, authorized to bear weapons in holy space, responsible for maintaining discipline during ceremonies and protecting brothers from external threats. His scarlet cloak bears Mars's symbols, embroidered in gold thread. His bronze helmet gleams with polish that reflects oil flames. His oath-sworn sword never leaves his side. He learns the military prayers that invoke the bull slayer as unconquered general, practices combat techniques that blend physical training with spiritual discipline, and prepares his soul for the leonine grade that roars beyond the next elevation. Leo, the lion, undergoes purification by honey rather than water, for lions belong to fire's element, and water would quench their divine flame. Brothers pour golden streams over his head while he kneels before the altar, sticky sweetness matting his hair, running down his face in rivulets that taste of Persian meadows and celestial blessing. He learns to roar during ceremonies, not human speech, but primal sound that summons solar power, channeling the cosmic lion that devours darkness and births each dawn. The lion tends the perpetual fire, feeding it with aromatic woods that fill the Mithraeum with frankincense and myrrh, maintaining flames that must never die lest cosmic order collapse into chaos. His golden robes catch firelight like captured sunbeams. His leonine mask transforms his face into divine ferocity. His movements echo the rhythm of celestial spheres. He alone among lower grades may speak directly to the Father during certain ceremonies, serving as intermediary between earthbound initiates and cosmic authority. Beyond Leo waits Perses, the Persian, keeper of fruits and guardian of the holy meal's abundance. His grey robes recall Twilight mountains, where Zoroaster first received divine revelation. His curved dagger mirrors the sickle Perseus wielded against Medusa. His Phrygian cap marks him as heir to ancient wisdom. He prepares the honey cakes marked with cosmic symbols, arranges the fruits that represent Earth's bounty flowing from the bull's sacrifice, and guards the wine that transforms mortal blood into divine ichor. Higher still stands Heliodromus, the sun runner, clothed in radiant red that captures dawn's first light and sunset's final glory. 7 rays crown his head like solar corona. His whip drives the sun's eternal chariot across heaven's vault. His torch illuminates the path that souls must follow toward divine union. During the holy drama, he plays Sul himself, sharing the cosmic feast with Mithras before both ascend to heaven in the sun's golden chariot, modeling the destiny that awaits all faithful initiates. At the apex stands Pater, the father, wearing the god's own Phrygian cap and bearing his curved sword, ruling his congregation as divine representative on earth. He alone knows all the mysteries, speaks all the divine names, performs the complete ritual cycle that mirrors cosmic creation and destruction. His word becomes law within the temple precinct. His blessing transforms bread and wine into divine substance. His authority extends from underground chamber to celestial throne, where the bull slayer judges the souls of the faithful. 7 grades ascending like rungs on Jacob's ladder, each demanding sacrifice of what came before, each promising revelation of what lies ahead. The soul climbs slowly from earthbound raven to solar lion to cosmic father, dying and being reborn at every threshold. until mortal flesh houses immortal fire, and the initiate becomes what he has always worshipped. A fragment of divine light trapped temporarily in clay, destined ultimately for stars. Legion 15. Apollinaris strikes camp at Carnuntum on the Danube, as winter fog rolls off the river like phantom armies marching toward dawn. Centurion Marcus Claudius Maximus watches his men pack their gear with practiced efficiency. Bronze helmets nested inside iron-banded shields, gladi wrapped in oiled leather, personal effects stuffed into leather satchels that have travelled from Britain to Babylon. The order comes at first light. Immediate transfer to Satala in Cappadocia, where Parthian threats require experienced troops and tested steel. Within 3 months of their arrival in Armenia's shadow, something remarkable happens beneath Satala's fortress walls. Veterans pool their discharge bonuses, silver denarii earned through 25 years of loyal service, to fund construction of a chamber carved from living rock. They work by torchlight after daily drills, their hands more accustomed to sword hilts than masons' tools, yet they carve with the devotion of master craftsmen creating divine palaces. The dedicatory inscription they chisel into marble records their names and ranks. Gaius Valerius, Optio; Lucius Cornelius, Signifer; Marcus Junius, Hastatus Posterior. 40 souls bound by oaths stronger than military discipline. This scene repeats across the empire like thunder following lightning, wherever Roman eagles cast their shadows. At Housestead's fort on Hadrian's Wall, 3 Mithraea serve different constituencies within the same garrison. One for centurions and optiones whose scarlet cloaks mark them as the legion's backbone. One for regular legionaries whose iron discipline holds the line against barbarian storms. One for auxiliary troops whose diverse origins create a brotherhood transcending blood and birth. Each temple maintains strict hierarchy, even in divine fellowship, yet all recognize the same passwords, honor the same cosmic drama, share the same hope of victory over death. The religion spreads through military networks faster than plague, carried not by merchants or missionaries, but by soldiers whose lives depend on trust. A German auxiliary initiated at Cologne arrives in Syria, bearing letters of introduction to brothers he has never met. Yet when he whispers the grade passwords learned beside the Rhine, Syrian centurions embrace him as family. At Dura Europos on the Euphrates frontier, the Mithraeum sits strategically between headquarters and the main gate. Its congregation, including the garrison commander, senior centurions, and the camp prefect, a religious elite controlling Rome's eastern defenses through bonds forged in underground fire. Mithras, the bull slayer, speaks naturally to the soldier's mind and needs no justification. Soldiers already understand rank advancing through merit, discipline conquering chaos, oath-keeping transcending personal comfort. The 7 grades mirror military hierarchy, from common miles to commanding centurion, while promising advancement based on spiritual courage rather than political favor. Most powerfully, the god offers what traditional Roman religion cannot: brotherhood, surviving death, cosmic meaning for earthly suffering, victory assured to those who serve righteousness regardless of battlefield fortune. In Britain's mist-shrouded highlands, auxiliary cavalry from Batavia and Frisia gather in caves carved beneath Broccolicia's ramparts. Their Mithraeum accommodates barely 30 initiates, yet its congregation represents 8 different tribes, 4 provinces, and 3 continents. Batavian horse warriors recline beside Dacian infantry. Syrian archers share bread with Germanic spearmen, all united beneath the god's eternal gaze. The temple's painted ceiling maps, constellations visible above their various homelands. Ursa Major wheeling over German forests, Cassiopeia blazing above Dacian mountains, Orion striding across Syrian deserts, reminding them that heaven watches over all who serve divine order. Legions 6. Victrix receives transfer orders from York to Xanten, carrying their mysteries across the North Sea like merchants transporting precious cargo. Veterans arriving at their new posting immediately locate the local Mithraeum, presenting themselves to the Father with letters sealed in temple wax. Within days, they participate in ceremonies identical to those they practiced in Britain, speaking passwords learned beside Hadrian's Wall, to brothers who learned them beside the Rhine. The ritual remains constant while geography shifts, proof that divine truth transcends political boundaries, that cosmic law governs barbarian wilderness as surely as civilized provinces. At Aquincum in Pannonia, engineering officers construct the most sophisticated Mithraeum yet discovered, a complex featuring multiple chambers connected by underground passages that honeycomb the fortress foundations. The main temple accommodates 50 initiates reclining on marble benches imported from Carrara quarries, while side chambers serve specific functions: an apparatorium where priests don ceremonial masks, instruction rooms where fathers teach astronomical mysteries, and most remarkably, a circular chamber with 7 alcoves representing planetary spheres. During certain ceremonies, initiates progress from alcove to alcove, symbolically ascending through cosmic levels toward divine union. The Persian Wars under Trajan provide the cult's greatest expansion opportunity. As legions march beyond the Euphrates towards Ctesiphon, they encounter Persian fire temples where Zoroastrian magi tend flames that have burned for centuries. Roman soldiers, many already initiated into solar mysteries, recognize kinship between their bull-slayer and Persian Mithra. Veterans returning from Mesopotamian campaigns bring detailed knowledge of Persian rituals, astronomical calculations refined by generations of magi, and most importantly, authentic Persian prayers that add legitimacy to Roman adaptations. By Hadrian's accession, military installations from Tingis in Morocco to Trapezus on the Black Sea house underground temples, where Roman eagles coexist with Persian symbols, where Latin inscriptions invoke Iranian deities, where Mediterranean soldiers worship beneath painted ceilings, showing Central Asian constellations. The god conquers through conversion rather than compulsion, offering military communities exactly what they crave. Brotherhood transcending ethnic divisions, meaning surviving military service. Hope extending beyond mortal campaigns into cosmic victory. Each garrison develops distinctive practices while maintaining core unity. British temples emphasize endurance through winter darkness. Rhine fortresses stress vigilance against barbarian threats. Syrian garrisons focus on wisdom gained through Eastern mysteries. African units celebrate solar power, blazing over endless deserts. Yet all recognize the same tauroctony scene. All practice similar initiation ordeals. All anticipate the same post-mortem journey through planetary spheres towards stellar immortality. The legions become the gods' evangelists, carrying divine fire from frontier to frontier, like Olympic torchbearers maintaining eternal flame. Where Roman standards plant themselves in foreign soil, Mithraeus soon follow, carved from bedrock by hands that build bridges, aqueducts, and roads connecting civilizations' outposts. Through military discipline applied to spiritual quest, through hierarchy serving transcendence, through brotherhood forged in underground darkness, the Persian god conquers the Roman world without drawing sword or shedding blood. Victory achieved through voluntary surrender of souls hungry for meaning beyond mere survival. Emperor Trajan returns from conquering Dacia, with a triumph that drowns Rome in gold, like summer rain flooding desert valleys. Dacian treasures stream through the forum, silver vessels hammered by barbarian smiths, amber beads worn by chieftains' wives, and most spectacular of all, wagon loads of raw gold torn from Carpathian mountains, where dragons once guarded ancient hoards. The metal catches sunlight and throws it back transformed, painting marble columns with aureate fire that seems to flow like liquid starlight through the capital's veins. This golden flood transforms the religious landscape as dramatically as any military conquest. In Ostia's bustling port, 17 Mithraea serve 40,000 residents within a generation, each sponsored by different trade associations whose prosperity mirrors the empire's expanding wealth. The Stupari, harbour workers whose calloused hands load ships from Alexandria and Gades, construct their temple decorated with anchors wrought in bronze and ship prows carved from Pentelic marble. The Mensores Frumentari, grain measurers who ensure Rome's bread supply flows smoothly from Egyptian fields to Roman bakeries, install a revolutionary rotating ceiling that demonstrates cosmic motion through ingenious mechanical artifice. Under Hadrian, intellectual sophistication enters the mysteries like wine flowing into water, transforming simple ritual into complex theology. The emperor himself, initiated beneath Athens's Acropolis where Pericles once walked, commissions learned commentaries on divine doctrine from the empire's finest minds. Celsus of Alexandria writes that ascending through the 7 grades mirrors the soul's journey through planetary spheres after death, each level teaching cosmic lessons that prepare initiates for stellar immortality. His treatise, copied in scriptoriums from Britain to Syria, becomes the closest thing to orthodox theology the mysteries ever possess. Porphyry of Tyre, master of both Platonic philosophy and Persian wisdom, describes the Mithraeum as an image of the cosmos the god created, every architectural detail carrying symbolic weight that reveals universal structure to those wise enough to comprehend divine mathematics. The painted ceiling represents heaven's vault, stone benches symbolize Earth's foundations, the narrow aisle mirrors the celestial equator dividing cosmic hemispheres. Even the number of oil lamps burning during ceremonies, 7 times 7, reflects astronomical calculations that govern planetary movements and seasonal transitions. Numenius of Apamea, Syrian philosopher whose treatises blend Greek logic with Oriental mysticism, identifies the bull slayer with Plato's cosmic craftsman, the divine architect who shapes chaotic matter into ordered universe through mathematical precision and aesthetic harmony. His writings circulate among educated initiates, transforming crude ritual drama into sophisticated cosmological teaching that attracts senators and scholars alongside soldiers and merchants. The god becomes not merely a military deity promising battlefield victory, but the supreme cosmic principle governing reality's deepest structures. Emperor Marcus Aurelius mentions divine endurance in his private meditations, though whether these references indicate personal initiation remains tantalizingly unclear. His philosophical notebooks, discovered after death in the imperial apartments, contain passages praising those who accept necessary suffering while maintaining inner freedom, language that echoes grade ordeals, where candidates endure fire and darkness to achieve spiritual liberation. The philosopher-emperor's stoicism finds natural kinship with Persian dualism, both teaching that divine souls must struggle against material corruption to achieve their celestial destiny. His son, Commodus, shocks Roman society by personally participating in initiation ordeals usually performed symbolically for aristocratic candidates. Ancient sources, admittedly hostile, claim he actually kills a man during a Leo-grade ceremony, wielding the ceremonial sword with gladiatorial enthusiasm rather than ritualistic restraint. Whether this represents religious devotion or psychotic excess remains debated, but the incident demonstrates how thoroughly the mysteries have penetrated imperial circles, becoming fashionable among the very elite who traditionally scorned foreign superstitions. The cult's golden age coincides with the empire's territorial zenith and economic prosperity. From Hadrian's Wall to the Sahara's edge, from Atlantic shores to Mesopotamian rivers, underground temples multiply like stars appearing at dusk. Each follows the standard architectural plan while reflecting local materials and artistic traditions. British Mithraea carved from indigenous limestone, Syrian temples decorated with Eastern motifs, African sanctuaries built from red sandstone that glows like captured sunset in oil flame light. Wealthy patrons compete to sponsor the most magnificent temples, their inscriptions recording donations that would fund entire legions. Senator Flavius Agricola contributes Italian marble for the Ostia temple, while Syrian merchant Lucius Septimius imports cedar beams from Lebanon's mountains for his Mithraeum in Dara Europos. Egyptian papyrus manufacturer Claudius Maximus ships precious papyrus to Britain for recording grade progressions, while Spanish silver mine owner Marcus Valerius provides metal for ceremonial vessels used throughout Gaul's temples. For trade associations, the mysteries serve as both sacred ritual and practical stage for advancement. Membership in the same Mithraeum creates bonds stronger than mere commercial partnerships, while grade progression provides subtle indicators of wealth, education, and social standing that transcend traditional class boundaries. A freedman achieving the Leo grade commands more respect within temple walls than a senator stuck at Miles level, creating alternative hierarchies based on spiritual merit rather than inherited privilege. The mysteries reach their institutional peak when Marcus Aurelius dies in 180, leaving behind an empire where the bull slayer is worshipped from Scotland to Sudan, from Spain to Syria. Underground temples honeycomb the civilized world, their oil lamps creating a constellation of sacred fires that mirror heaven's stars. Initiate networks span continents, binding together soldiers, merchants, administrators, and aristocrats in brotherhood that transcends ethnic, linguistic, and class divisions. For this brief moment in history, it seems the Persian god might eclipse all rivals, becoming the empire's unofficial but universal religion. Even in this moment of triumph, the horizon darkens with approaching clouds. In Syria's cities, Christian communities grow quietly but persistently, their inclusive message attracting women, slaves, and poor citizens excluded from divine mysteries. Their bishops write increasingly sophisticated theological treatises that challenge Persian dualism with monotheistic clarity, while their martyrs demonstrate courage that rivals any initiation ordeal. The collision between bull slayer and crucified God lies just beyond the golden sunset, waiting to determine which divine vision will ultimately capture humanity's allegiance. Within the Mithraeum's consecrated darkness, Father Lucius Cornelius raises his torch toward the Tauroctony relief, while 40 initiates lean forward on stone benches, their faces carved from shadow and flame. Tonight, he will reveal the ultimate mystery that transforms brutal sacrifice into cosmic salvation, the theological riddle that explains why divine love requires divine violence, why creation's greatest gift demands destruction's deepest wound. His voice carries the weight of Persian mountains and Roman authority as he speaks the words that have echoed through underground chambers for 3 centuries. Before time began, he intones, before stars learned their courses or planets found their paths, the god dwelt in primordial light beyond the cosmos. eternal and unchanging in perfect solitude. But Ahriman, lord of darkness and architect of chaos, gazed upon creation's harmony with envious hatred. He shattered the divine order, hurling stars from their appointed places, reversing the courses of rivers, turning children against parents and subjects against kings. The universe convulsed like a dying beast, beauty transforming into horror, light dissolving into endless night. The initiates know this stellar drama by heart, yet each telling reveals new depths, fresh meanings that spiral inward like galaxies collapsing towards central fire. They understand that every word carries astronomical significance, that the story maps both celestial movements and spiritual transformations, occurring within their own souls as they ascend through the 7 grades toward divine union. In that primal chaos, the Father continues, the world bull fled in terror across the astral void, its body containing all life's potential, every flower that might bloom, every bird that might sing, every child that might laugh in sunlit meadows. The bull carried within its blood the seeds of forests, in its flesh the substance of mountains, in its breath the winds that would someday fill eagles' wings and lovers' sighs. But trapped within Ahriman's darkness, life remained prisoner, unable to manifest its infinite possibilities. The torch flame flickers, casting dancing shadows that bring the carved relief to life. The bull's marble eyes seem to blink with genuine terror, while the god's face shows that peculiar mixture of sorrow and determination that marks all true sacrifice. Love expressing itself through apparent cruelty, salvation achieved through seeming destruction. The god descended from his realm of pure light, accepting limitation and suffering to rescue imprisoned life. He hunted the cosmic bull through the universe cave, not from bloodlust, but from compassion, knowing that only through ritual slaying could creation be liberated from chaos. When he finally cornered the terrified beast in the celestial cavern, this very chamber where we gather, he wept even as he raised his dagger, understanding that love sometimes demands what appears to be its opposite. Here the Father pauses, allowing silence to settle like incense over the assembly. Each initiate contemplates his own offerings, the earthly crown rejected at Nymphos grade, the bonds of servitude accepted at Korax level, the ordeals by fire endured at Miles rank. They recognize their personal transformations reflected in the universal drama, their small deaths and rebirths echoing the universe's fundamental pattern. From the dying bull's blood spring all plants. Watch how wheat emerges from the wound, how grapevines coil around the dagger's blade. From its semen flow all animals. See the dog that laps the holy fluid, transforming death into life. From its tail grows grain that feeds humanity. From its spine rise the trees that shelter birds and beasts. The scorpion that attacks represents time itself, the force that ensures nothing remains static, that drives all existence through cycles of death and resurrection. The theological complexity overwhelms initiates at lower grades, but those who have achieved Leo rank or higher grasp at the deeper symbolism. The bull's death represents the necessity of offering in divine order, parents dying so children can live, soldiers falling so civilization endures, the god himself accepting limitation so creation can achieve liberation. Every element in the Tauroctony carries multiple meanings that interweave like threads in heavenly tapestry. Above the ritual slaying, Sol Invictus watches approvingly, for the sun understands that his daily death in western waters enables his resurrection in eastern skies. The god's face turns away, not from shame, but from sorrow, divine compassion, grieving over necessity's demands, while never wavering from duty's requirements. This is why we initiate through ordeals, why each grade demands offering of what came before. We learn that transformation requires destruction, that rebirth demands death, that love's highest expression sometimes appears as cruelty to those who understand only surface meanings. Side panels in more elaborate Mithraea show the gods' other deeds, born from rock like light erupting from celestial egg, shooting arrows at clouds to bring rain that nourishes the earth his immolation created, sharing a feast with Sul before ascending to heaven in the sun's golden chariot. These scenes encode astronomical knowledge that reveals the divine drama's universal scope. The rock birth represents the winter solstice, when light returns to darkness. The water miracle shows spring rains following winter's death. The heavenly banquet maps summer solstice, when sun and divine light unite in perfect harmony. Each holy meal we share, the Father concludes, recreates the bull's transformation, participants consuming symbolic flesh and blood to join in divine renewal. The bread becomes the bull's body, the wine its flowing life, our communion the eternal feast where death transforms into life, where offering becomes salvation, where sorrow dissolves into joy beyond mortal understanding. The initiates understand they participate not merely in symbolic drama, but in universal reality itself. Their underground temple represents the universe cave, where original immolation occurred. Their ritual meal connects them to that primordial feast. Their grade progression mirrors the soul's journey through planetary spheres towards stellar immortality. They are not merely worshippers, but divine actors, playing roles in heavenly drama that creates and sustains all existence. Through blood flows starlight, through darkness blazes eternal fire, through ritual death streams infinite love. The mystery reveals itself not to minds seeking easy answers, but to souls willing to be transformed through holy ordeals that mirror the celestial pattern. Death accepted willingly becomes life granted freely. Limitation embraced becomes liberation achieved. Sorrow endured in faith becomes joy experienced in eternity. In Rome's Trastevere district, a Mithraeum and Christian house church stand 3 streets apart, their congregations passing daily in narrow alleys, where cartwheels grind against stone and merchants hawk oil and wine from earthenware jars. The Mithraic brothers wear the quiet confidence of military veterans and successful traders, their tunics bearing subtle symbols, a 7-pointed star, a tiny bronze bull, that mark them as initiates to those who understand such signs. The Christians move differently, with the urgent purpose of people carrying dangerous secrets, their eyes holding that peculiar mixture of joy and terror that comes from believing the world will end tomorrow, yet hoping it might last forever. Both communities meet in secret. Both promise salvation from death's dominion. Both practice ritual meals that transform bread and wine into divine substance. Yet they regard each other with suspicion that borders on hostility, recognizing in their rivals' ceremonies distorted reflections of their own most cherished truths. The Christian deacon, Justin Martyr, writes furiously that demons, foreseeing Christ's coming, created the bull slayer's mysteries as diabolical parody designed to confuse the faithful. His quill scratches against papyrus like claws against stone as he documents each similarity. Initiation through ordeals, communion with divine blood, promise of resurrection, declaring them Satan's counterfeits of genuine revelation. Tertullian of Carthage rages with even greater eloquence, his rhetoric blazing like forge fire as he accuses the Persian god of aping Christian sacraments with deliberate mockery. The devil baptizes some, his own believers and faithful followers. He thunders from North African pulpits. He promises the putting away of sins by a laver of his own. If my memory serves me right, The god marks the foreheads of his soldiers, celebrates also the oblation of bread, and introduces an image of a resurrection. The similarities disturb him precisely because they strike so close to Christian practice, like counterfeit coins that fool the unwary through their resemblance to genuine currency. Beneath superficial likenesses lie deeper divisions, rifts untouched by debate. These gatherings greet women with radical warmth, proclaiming a fellowship where rank and gender lose their force. The cult chambers echo with female voices raised in prayer and prophecy, matrons and serving girls worshipping shoulder to shoulder in equality that scandals traditional Roman sensibilities. The mysteries, by contrast, maintain masculine exclusivity as rigid as military discipline. No woman may enter the underground chambers. No feminine voice may speak the divine passwords. No female hands may touch the ceremonial implements that channel divine power. Christians embrace slaves, freedmen, and the desperately poor, with arms opened wide as heaven's gates, their bishops declaring that God shows no favoritism toward wealth or birth. In hidden gatherings, Greek-speaking slaves from Anatolia break bread with Latin-speaking citizens. Syrian freedmen recline beside matrons of Rome, and children born in hovels receive the same blessing of water as senators' sons. The god's followers, meanwhile, demand proof of free birth and sufficient wealth to pay for initiation expenses. The olive oil for ceremonies, the white robes required for certain grades, the contribution toward temple maintenance that ensures only prosperous men can afford the higher mysteries. Most dramatically, Christians preach publicly despite persecution, their bishops writing letters copied frantically in hidden scriptoriums and smuggled across the Mediterranean in merchant ships and military pouches. They record their beliefs in gospels and epistles, creating written testimony that survives arrest, torture, and execution. Every Christian community possesses copies of sacred texts read aloud during weekly assemblies, their contents memorized by children and debated by scholars who treat written scripture as divine authority transcending human opinion. The mysteries guard oral traditions with jealous secrecy, forbidding any written record of their deepest teachings, each Mithraeum maintaining customs passed down through whispered instruction from father to initiate. Variations develop between temples separated by geography or generation. British Mithraea emphasize different aspects than Syrian ones. Rhine frontier practices differ subtly from those along Hadrian's Wall. This flexibility allows adaptation to local conditions, but prevents standardization, creating a religion of infinite variations rather than unified doctrine. Christians declare exclusive truth with prophetic certainty, proclaiming all other gods false or demonic, demanding converts abandon previous religious practices entirely. Their missionaries arrive in foreign cities like conquering generals, establishing churches that compete directly with existing temples, calling upon residents to choose between Christ and all rivals. This militant monotheism creates fierce opposition, but also attracts seekers hungry for absolute certainty in an age of religious confusion. The bull slayers' devotees practice comfortable syncretism, happily worshipping Isis on Tuesday, attending Sol Invictus ceremonies on Sunday, and participating in traditional Roman festivals whenever civic duty requires. They see their God as one divine power among many rather than the sole source of salvation, offering cosmic wisdom to those prepared for its depths, while acknowledging other deities serve different spiritual needs. This tolerance makes fewer enemies, but also inspires less passionate commitment than Christianity's all-or-nothing approach. By 250, Christians likely outnumbered devotees of the mysteries 5 to 1. their inclusive message spreading through society's foundation, like water seeping through limestone, while the Persian religion remains concentrated among military and commercial elites. Christian bishops establish networks spanning continents, their letters creating administrative unity that rivals imperial bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Mithraic fathers remain independent priests serving local congregations without central authority, beyond shared traditions and common symbols. The competition intensifies as both religions target the same constituencies: soldiers seeking meaning beyond military service, merchants traveling dangerous trade routes, administrators governing distant provinces, educated citizens dissatisfied with traditional mythology. Veterans returning from Eastern campaigns face choice between the familiar military structure of the mysteries and Christianity's promise of universal brotherhood. Syrian traders must decide between the cosmic wisdom offered in underground chambers and the eternal life proclaimed in house churches. Greek philosophers debate whether truth lies in Persian dualism or Hebrew monotheism. Yet in the army, the bull slayer still reigns supreme. Legionary camps from Britain to Mesopotamia house active Mithraea, where centurions and optiones gather for monthly ceremonies that reinforce military hierarchy through religious ritual. The 7 grades mirror military advancement: initiation, ordeals test courage, soldiers' respect, and the promise of cosmic victory appeals to men whose lives depend on earthly triumph. Christianity makes inroads among auxiliary troops and support personnel, but the legion's core remains loyal to their underground god. The question crystallizes around imperial favor. Which deity will capture the emperor's allegiance and transform personal preference into state policy? Christians pray for a ruler who will recognize their exclusive claims and elevate their church above all rivals. Followers of the mysteries hope for an emperor who appreciates cosmic wisdom and military virtues their god embodies. Both communities sense that religious competition approaches decisive climax, that the next generation will witness triumph of one vision and eclipse of the other. In underground chambers, initiates share bread blessed by Persian prayers, while above them, in house churches, Christians break bread blessed by Hebrew scriptures. Both rituals promise salvation. Both communities prepare for persecution. Both religions await the moment when their divine champion will claim victory over death itself. The Roman world holds its breath, sensing that gods as well as empires hang in the balance, that the next emperor's choice will echo through eternity. The empire convulses like a dying bull as 50 emperors rise and fall in 50 years, their reigns measured in months rather than decades, their deaths coming from assassin's blade as often as barbarian spear. Maximinus Thrax, the giant soldier emperor who reportedly stands 8 feet tall and wears his wife's bracelet as a thumb ring, rises from Thracian peasant stock to imperial purple through sheer military prowess and the loyalty of legions who recognize authentic courage when they see it carved in muscle and bone. He favors his fellow soldiers' god with devotion that borders on desperation, understanding that divine favor matters more than senatorial approval when survival depends on sword arms and shield walls. Coins minted during his brief, violent reign show Sol Invictus and Mithras as virtually identical figures, the unconquered sun conflated with the unconquered god, solar radiance merged with Persian light in imagery that speaks to soldiers who see little difference between celestial and terrestrial victory. The emperor's massive hands, which legends claim can crush stones to powder, drop offerings into temple fires while his Germanic bodyguards stand watch outside underground chambers, where prayers rise in Latin, Greek, and barbarian tongues toward the same divine throne. During these chaotic decades, when imperial authority collapses faster than spring snow in alpine passes, Mithraea become islands of stability in an ocean of destruction, while cities burn and emperors die with monotonous regularity. The Brotherhood maintains its discipline with military precision that impresses even those who worship other gods. At Virunum in Noricum, the same families tend the temple fires through 7 imperial assassinations, their children learning the grade progressions, while above them the world tears itself apart in civil wars that consume entire provinces, like forest fires devouring summer-dry mountains. Philip the Arab, despite whispered rumors of Christian sympathies that scandalize traditional senators, permits his Praetorian prefect to dedicate Rome's largest Mithraeum in a ceremony that draws hundreds of initiates from across the Mediterranean world. The temple's marble floors gleam with Eastern splendor, its painted ceiling maps, constellations visible above Damascus and Palmyra. Its bronze fixtures bear Syrian craftsmen's signatures, alongside Latin dedications that proclaim eternal loyalty to both emperor and god. The prefect's inscription, carved in stone that will outlast dynasties, declares his gratitude for military victories granted through divine intervention. Gallienus, that most cultivated of crisis emperors, initiates revival of mystery religions as traditional mythology fails to provide meaning for suffering that defies rational explanation. His court philosophers argue that ancient wisdom, contained in Persian mysteries, offers better guidance for navigating chaotic times than tired Roman formulas about duty and honor. The emperor himself participates in grade ceremonies, his philosopher's beard and poet's sensibilities, making him an unlikely but enthusiastic participant in ordeals designed for hardened soldiers. When Aurelian seizes power through typical military coup, he goes further than any predecessor in elevating solar worship to state religion. His edict of 274 declares Sol Invictus, the empire's supreme deity, establishes a massive temple in Rome that rivals Jupiter's in magnificence, and creates a new priesthood whose authority extends from Britain to Mesopotamia. Though the emperor never explicitly equates Sul with Mithras, every soldier understands the connection. The same divine light that blazes in underground temples now shines from imperial altars. The same cosmic power that grants victory in mysterious ceremonies receives official recognition in public worship. The new temple rises on the campus Martius, like a second sun made manifest in marble and gold, its towering columns visible from across the 7 hills, its gilded dome catching dawn light and throwing it back, transformed into sheets of flame that paint the morning sky with divine fire. Inside, colossal statues of Sol, driving his eternal chariot, dominate sacred space, designed to accommodate thousands of worshippers, while smaller chambers beneath the main floor provide intimate settings for mysteries that cannot be celebrated under open sky. From every frontier, soldiers send offerings for the temple: gold from the edges of Britain, silver from the Rhine strongholds, iron from Danubian forges, silk from Palmyra's markets, all converging on Rome like streams feeding a sacred river. Veterans pool their discharge bonuses to sponsor altar dedications, their inscriptions recording names and ranks while declaring eternal gratitude for battles won and comrades saved through divine intervention. For one shining moment, it seems the Persian god might achieve official recognition without abandoning his essential nature. Aurelian's solar theology accommodates mystery traditions while providing public expression for previously hidden devotions. The emperor himself, though never formally initiated, displays understanding of astronomical symbolism that suggests intimate familiarity with temple teachings. His military reforms strengthen legions that form the god's primary constituency. His economic policies benefit the merchant classes that sponsor urban Mithraea. His foreign campaigns extend Roman authority into regions where Persian influences remain strong. Even at this height, weaknesses spread beneath the surface, like hairline breaks running through marble under pressure. Christian communities, driven underground by renewed persecution, grow stronger in adversity, while pagan revivals depend on imperial favor that proves as fragile as the emperors who grant it. The solar cult's public ceremonies lack the intimate brotherhood that makes mystery initiation so compelling, while the mystery's exclusiveness prevents them from matching Christianity's inclusive appeal among society's expanding lower classes. When Aurelian falls to assassin's blades near Byzantium in 275, his solar reforms die with him, leaving behind magnificent temples, but no institutional structure strong enough to survive political transition. The divine light that seemed destined to illuminate the empire's future flickers like oil lamps running low on fuel, while in Christian house churches, believers pray with renewed hope that their crucified God will soon triumph over all rivals. The soldier emperor's patronage provides the god's last moment of potential supremacy. When military devotion might have translated into state religion, and underground worship could have emerged into daylight. But the window closes as quickly as it opened, leaving only memories of what might have been, and underground chambers where the faithful continue their ancient vigil, waiting for imperial favor that will never come again. Diocletian divides the empire among 4 rulers, like a father parceling inheritance among quarreling sons, each tetrarch favoring different divine patrons in what becomes history's most consequential religious competition. Galerius champions Jupiter with traditional Roman fervor. Maximian prefers Hercules, the divine strongman. Constantius shows dangerous sympathy toward Christians that worries his colleagues, while Diocletian himself maintains connections to Persian mysteries that span decades of military service. His dedication at Carnuntum reads like a prayer carved in stone to the unconquered god, patron of our empire. Words that every initiated soldier recognizes as homage to the divine bull-slayer who grants victory to the righteous. The Tetrarchy's religious diversity inadvertently creates space for theological experimentation that previous emperors' unified rule had suppressed. In Nicomedia, Galerius constructs Jupiter temples that rival anything built during the Republic's golden age. Maximian's Hercules shrines dot the western provinces like military camps dedicated to divine strength. Constantius quietly permits Christian churches to operate openly in Gaul and Britain, their bishops emerging from underground hiding places to preach in forums where they previously feared to whisper. Meanwhile, Diocletian's court includes Persian magi, whose astronomical wisdom influences imperial policy in ways that traditional Roman augurs find deeply disturbing. When Diocletian issues his edicts in 303, the Great Persecution demonstrates the hardened shape of religious conflict. Christianity is singled out, scriptures burned, churches torn down, clergy seized. Those devoted to the Persian god find themselves pulled into the company of Rome's older faiths, forced into opposition with Christianity's claims. Their underground chambers providing refuge for priests whose public shrines have been caught up in the wave of destruction. The persecution's intensity surprises even its architects. In Egyptian cities, Christian mobs fight running battles with imperial troops, while pagan crowds cheer from rooftops and balconies. Syrian bishops choose martyrdom over compromise, their executions drawing thousands of mourners who transform funeral processions into demonstrations that require additional legions to control. Most disturbing to authorities, Some Christians welcome death with enthusiasm that borders on madness, rushing toward execution platforms while singing hymns that chill spectators' blood with their otherworldly joy. Then comes October 27th, 312, the moment that pivots history like a door swinging on bronze hinges. Constantine marches toward Rome to battle Maxentius, his army a patchwork of Gallic veterans, Germanic auxiliaries, and British cavalry, whose loyalty depends more on personal devotion than political conviction. Later accounts claim he sees a cross of light blazing above the sun at midday, hears divine voice commanding, "In this sign, conquer." Vision that transforms ambitious general into instrument of Christian destiny, though the story's details multiply and shift with each telling. His triumph at Milvian Bridge lifts a once persecuted faith from the shadows to the throne in a single day of carnage. Maxentius vanishes beneath the Tiber, while his Praetorian Guard dies to the last defender on the doomed crossing. Constantine's troops drive new standards into Roman soil still wet with pagan sacrifice, their shouts echoing across the seven hills like trumpets of heaven proclaiming favor. With characteristic caution, the new emperor proceeds, knowing that spiritual revolution must be steered carefully between factions that could fracture his alliance more quickly than a battlefield rout. His coins continue featuring Sol Invictus for years after his conversion, the solar imagery providing comfortable transition for soldiers accustomed to worshipping light-bearing deities. His arch depicts ambiguous divine figures that could represent Christ or solar gods, depending on viewer interpretation. Most significantly, he retains the title Pontifex Maximus, maintaining official connection to traditional Roman religion, even while favoring its Christian replacement. Many devotees of the Persian god initially interpret Constantine's solar symbolism as endorsement of their own light-worshipping traditions. The Chi-Rho symbol, blazing on imperial standards, resembles astronomical signs used in temple ceremonies, while the emperor's emphasis on divine light echoes theological concepts that underground initiates have contemplated for generations. Some Mithraea add Christian symbols to their existing decorations, hedging religious bets in an age when imperial favor determines survival more surely than theological correctness. Reality strikes with accumulating force rather than sudden revelation. Imperial funds flow toward church construction, while temple maintenance budgets evaporate like morning dew under summer sun. Bishops gain judicial powers that transform them from hunted criminals into legal authorities, their courts handling marriage disputes and inheritance cases previously adjudicated by traditional magistrates. Christian holidays receive official recognition, while pagan festivals lose state sponsorship, their celebrations becoming private affairs funded by diminishing numbers of traditionalist aristocrats. Most devastating for the mysteries, the army, their strongest foundation, receives orders to make space for soldiers unwilling to join traditional rites. Legions that previously required unanimous participation in regimental religious observances now struggle with divided loyalties that undermine the spiritual unity essential for military effectiveness. Veterans find their grade achievements meaningless in promotions systems that favor Christian networking over mystery brotherhood, while young recruits choose baptism over initiation as the path toward military advancement. Constantine's legislation carefully avoids direct assault on mystery religions, preferring gradual strangulation to dramatic confrontation that might provoke organized resistance. He prohibits construction of new pagan temples while permitting maintenance of existing ones, creates legal disabilities for pagan priests while avoiding outright persecution, and redirects imperial patronage toward Christian institutions, while claiming religious neutrality that fools no one capable of reading political winds. By the emperor's death in 337, the transformation appears irreversible, even to the most optimistic traditionalists. New churches rise in every major city, while the Mithraea stay confined to their underground chambers, drawing fewer initiates with each passing year. The god who once seemed destined to illuminate the empire now watches his temples empty, like winter streams frozen at their sources, his devotees aging without replacement, his institutional support evaporating like smoke from dying fires. Constantine never formally prohibits the mysteries, never declares their god false or demonic, never orders their temples destroyed or their priests exiled. His victory proves more complete than persecution could have achieved. By changing the empire's spiritual atmosphere, he suffocates underground religions without the martyrdom that might have renewed their strength. The cross rises not through conquest, but through imperial favor that proves more decisive than any military campaign, more final than any theological debate. Julian grows up in Cappadocia's mountain shadows, like a plant struggling towards sunlight through Christian darkness, his young mind secretly drinking from forbidden wells of ancient wisdom, while his lips speak pious words that taste like ashes on his tongue. Behind locked doors in his uncle's villa, he reads Iamblichus and Plotinus by oil lamp light, their philosophical Greek burning brighter in his imagination than any Christian scripture, their descriptions of divine mysteries calling to something deep in his soul that episcopal sermons can never touch. When courtiers visit, he hides pagan texts beneath prayer books and affects the meek demeanor expected from imperial family members who survive through submission rather than ambition. The boy learns early that survival depends on perfect deception. In public assemblies, he recites biblical verses with apparent devotion, while privately memorizing Orphic hymns that describe reality's hidden structure. He attends Christian liturgies with downcast eyes and folded hands, while his heart races with anticipation for private moments when he can study astronomical charts that map the soul's journey through planetary spheres. His tutors praise his theological skill, unaware that he studies the new creed, mainly to trace its borrowings from older mystery traditions. When unexpected fortune elevates him from scholarly exile to imperial purple, the transformation shocks even those who knew him best. The meek philosopher vanishes like morning mist, replaced by an emperor whose first acts proclaim religious revolution, with the fury of a dam bursting after years of mounting pressure. His edicts restore temple privileges abolished by Constantine, recall pagan priests from exile, and redirect imperial funds toward reconstruction projects that employ thousands of craftsmen eager to rebuild what Christian mobs destroyed. The quiet student becomes a whirlwind of activity that terrifies bishops and exhilarates traditionalists who had resigned themselves to permanent defeat. In Antioch, where Christians form powerful communities that dominate commercial and intellectual life, Julian descends into an ancient Mithraeum, like a man returning home after decades of wandering in foreign lands. The chamber has survived Christian persecution through careful concealment, its entrance hidden behind a wine merchant's shop, its painted ceiling preserved beneath layers of soot and neglect. Veterans who maintained the sanctuary through dark years weep openly as the emperor kneels before the Tauroctony relief, his purple robes pooling around him like spilled wine as he prepares for mysteries that will bind him eternally to the god his dynasty abandoned. What happens next violates every tradition the Brotherhood holds sacred. In a single night of ceremonies that should span years or decades, Julian undergoes all 7 grades of initiation, from Corax to Pater, his imperial impatience overriding ancient wisdom that demands gradual spiritual development. The attending fathers, torn between reverence for his office and horror at his haste, perform compressed rituals that pack lifetimes of meaning into hours of frenetic activity. They brand him with sacred marks, anoint him with honey and oil, teach him passwords that open divine gates, and finally crown him with the Phrygian cap that marks him as the god's earthly representative. The emperor emerges from underground chambers, transformed in ways that disturb even sympathetic observers. He writes hymns to Mithras Helios with mystical fervor that borders on madness, their verses blending philosophical abstractions with personal devotions that reveal dangerous intimacy between mortal ruler and divine power. His letters to Persian magi seek astronomical wisdom with desperate urgency, as if cosmic knowledge might compensate for decades of enforced ignorance. He subsidizes shrine reconstruction with imperial treasury funds, while simultaneously cutting support for Christian churches, creating economic warfare between competing religious communities. Most dramatically, he commands the legions to return to religious observances set aside under Constantine. Veterans who recall the old rites struggle to revive ceremonies long neglected, only to find the world around them transformed. Younger recruits raised in decades shaped by the new faith reject what they see as demonic rituals, splitting units that rely on shared devotion for cohesion. Germanic auxiliaries, many shaped by Arian preaching, refuse outright to honor gods their bishops have taught them to despise. In Constantinople, Christian riots erupt when the emperor removes church privileges and restores pagan festivals to the civic calendar. In districts once secure for philosophers of the old ways, hostile crowds now descend, and in response, traditionalists target merchants whose thriving businesses signal the ascendancy of another faith. The city divides into armed camps that require military intervention, troops loyal to Julian battling citizens whose allegiance belongs to Christ in urban warfare that previews larger conflicts to come. Antioch's cultured citizens mock the philosopher emperor's ascetic lifestyle and mystical enthusiasms with sophisticated cruelty that wounds him more deeply than barbarian arrows. They nickname him the Goat for his unkempt philosophical beard, compose satirical verses about his dietary restrictions, and pointedly ignore religious festivals he reinstates with imperial authority, but cannot compel popular enthusiasm. The gap between imperial will and social reality becomes painfully obvious, as ancient ceremonies attract sparse crowds, while Christian assemblies overflow with participants who transform worship into political resistance. When Julian invades Persia, seeking military glory that might validate his religious revolution, the omens turn dark from the campaign's beginning. His Mithraic advisors read sacrificial signs with growing anxiety, their astronomical calculations suggesting unfavorable planetary alignments that traditional Roman augurs would have recognized as warnings against Eastern adventures. The god who grants victory to the righteous seems to withhold his favor from even his most devoted champion, perhaps sensing that desperate faith makes poor foundation for divine cooperation. The Persian campaign becomes a nightmare of failed logistics and strategic miscalculation. Supply lines stretch beyond their breaking point, while enemy forces melt away before Roman advances only to reappear behind them like phantoms made of sand and steel. The Tigris and Euphrates, rivers that should provide navigation routes for Roman boats, become barriers that channel imperial forces into killing grounds where Persian archers wait with arrows nocked and bowstrings drawn. Weather turns hostile. Disease spreads through the camps, and morale crumbles as soldiers begin whispering that their emperor's gods have abandoned him to Eastern demons. On June 26, 363, near Maranga in Mesopotamia, a spear thrown by Roman Christian or Persian enemy, no one knows which, pierces Julian's liver during a confused skirmish that decides nothing and changes everything. Legend claims he dies crying, "You have won, Galilean," though more reliable sources suggest he simply bleeds to death in his tent while discussing philosophy with attendant friends. The divine light that seemed destined to re-illuminate the empire gutters, like an oil lamp running dry, leaving only darkness where restoration once blazed with impossible hope. Mithras's last imperial champion expires in Mesopotamian dust, near the very lands where his god first received worship 3 millennia before, the cosmic wheel completing its revolution, in territory that remembers Persian prayers older than Roman conquest. With his death dies the final possibility that underground mysteries might emerge into daylight, that secret wisdom might become public truth, that the bull slayer might reclaim the throne his devotees believed he deserved. The restoration fails not through military defeat, but through social transformation, too deep for imperial authority to reverse, leaving the god's followers to retreat once more into underground chambers where they will await salvation that will never come. After Julian bleeds out in Mesopotamian dust, no emperor will ever again publicly worship Mithras or invoke the god's protection for Roman arms. The apostate's death closes a door that will never reopen, sealing the underground chamber's fate as surely as if workmen had bricked up their entrances with mortar, mixed from crushed altars and broken dreams. Jovian, the Christian general who inherits Julian's purple, along with his Persian disaster, immediately restores church privileges while quietly withdrawing imperial support from pagan shrines whose priests suddenly find themselves orphaned by power's shifting currents. Valentinian maintains careful neutrality in religious matters, understanding that his divided realm requires diplomatic balance between competing faiths. Yet his personal preferences clearly favor followers of Christ, whose bishops provide administrative efficiency that surpasses any pagan priesthood. His legislation permits traditional worship while creating legal frameworks that systematically disadvantage non-Christian communities through taxation, inheritance restrictions, and exclusion from imperial service. The sword of persecution remains sheathed, but economic pressure accomplishes what violence might have failed to achieve. Gratian delivers a blow more symbolic than practical, yet devastating in its implications when he refuses the ancient title Pontifex Maximus, breaking a chain of succession that stretches back to Rome's legendary kings. The high priesthood of Roman religion dies with his refusal, leaving traditional cults without their supreme authority, while Christian bishops fill the resulting vacuum with ecclesiastical hierarchy that mirrors and rivals imperial administration. The emperor's rejection signals that Rome itself has abandoned its ancestral gods, that the state no longer considers pagan deities worthy of official recognition. Then comes Theodosius, the Spanish general, whose orthodox fervor burns with Iberian intensity, whose edicts between 389 and 391 systematically criminalized pagan worship throughout the empire. His legislation transforms religious practice from private choice to public crime, making entry into a Mithraeum an act of treason, performance of initiation ceremonies a capital offense, even possession of sacred artwork grounds for exile or execution. The underground sanctuaries that survived 3 centuries of intermittent persecution now face systematic assault backed by imperial authority and Christian righteousness. Across the empire's wide domains, the pattern of destruction varies, depending on regional circumstances and the fervor of populations eager to uproot the old gods. In Rome itself, followers of Christ systematically locate Mithraea, using information extracted from former initiates, whose conversion brings them both salvation and social advancement. Armed with detailed knowledge of underground chambers' locations, Christian mobs break through floors of houses and shops to reach sacred spaces that their owners believed safely hidden beneath layers of stone and secrecy. They demolish the reliefs with hammers wielded like weapons of holy war, their bronze heads ringing against marble faces that have watched over mysteries for generations. The fragments become foundation stones for new churches, pagan gods literally supporting Christian altars in architectural irony that satisfies episcopal sense of divine justice. At Santa Prisca, the destroyers work with systematic thoroughness that suggests careful planning rather than spontaneous rage, defacing every figure in beautiful frescoes with methodical precision, except one haunting detail that reveals either mercy or malice in their hearts. They leave the god's face intact, but gouge out his eyes with iron tools, blinding the divine vision that once watched over sacred meals and guided souls through cosmic mysteries towards stellar salvation. The eyeless face stares forever into darkness, divine sight extinguished by human hatred. The bull slayer's gaze turned inward towards sorrows that mortal malice cannot touch. Whether this represents final cruelty or unexpected compassion remains forever ambiguous, like so much else about the mystery's violent end. In Alexandria, intellectual capital of the Eastern Mediterranean, mobs led by Bishop Theophilus destroy the Serapeum in 391, turning theological disputes into urban warfare. While pursuing devotees of Serapis through the temple's labyrinth, they break into a hidden Mithraeum unknown even to local Christians. The chamber yields treasures that intensify their fury: gold vessels, silk vestments, astronomical instruments, and, most dangerously, libraries of texts condemned as corruptions of revealed truth. The rioters parade sacred objects through Alexandria's streets like conquered battle standards, displaying Persian ceremonial masks and astronomical charts to crowds who cheer each revelation of pagan wickedness with enthusiasm that borders on hysteria. The final bonfire burns for 3 days, consuming centuries of accumulated wisdom, along with the physical implements of worship, smoke rising over the Mediterranean like incense offered to a jealous god who tolerates no rivals. Yet in frontier regions far from episcopal oversight, the end comes more quietly, with resignation rather than violence, abandonment rather than assault. At Karaburg, on Hadrian's Wall, the Mithraeum fills gradually with silt after the garrison withdraws to defend more threatened positions against Saxon raiders and Pictish war bands. Someone, perhaps the last father, perhaps a sympathetic Christian, carefully buries the altars beneath layers of earth and stone, covering divine faces with soil as gently as closing the eyes of beloved dead. The hidden relics wait in darkness like seeds planted against impossible spring, their bronze and marble surfaces slowly acquiring the patina of centuries, while above them grass grows thick and sheep graze peacefully over ground that once echoed with hymns to the unconquered God. The burial suggests hope rather than despair, faith that divine truth might someday resurface when the world grows ready for mysteries too deep for superficial ages to comprehend. Across the empire's crumbling frontiers, similar scenes unfold as military units abandon posts that can no longer be supplied or defended. Veterans who spent decades climbing through the 7 grades pack their few possessions and march toward uncertain futures, leaving behind underground chambers where they learned the cosmic secrets that gave meaning to lives otherwise devoted to killing and dying for causes greater than individual survival. The god's light gutters in shrine after shrine, as his most faithful servants face the choice between apostasy and exile. The last dated inscription appears in 408 at Sarsina, a simple dedication by Clarissimus Probus, who risks everything to honor his divine patron one final time. His carved words represent the final flicker of a tradition that once illuminated the Roman world, the last public acknowledgement of mysteries that shaped 3 centuries of imperial history. After Probus, silence falls like snow over forgotten shrines, covering divine names with layers of neglect that accumulate into centuries of oblivion. By 430, the god has become a ghost haunting the empire's ruins, his temples sealed or converted to Christian use, his priests dead or apostate, his initiated veterans buried in unmarked graves across 3 continents. The mysteries that once offered cosmic salvation to any man bold enough to endure their ordeals now survive only in hostile writings that preserve fragments of doctrine while vilifying the faith that shaped them. Mithras' reign ends not with apocalyptic battle, but with slow suffocation, the breath of the sacred stilled by a world that no longer trusts darkness as a path to light. By 430, Mithras has become a ghost haunting the empire's ruins, his presence lingering in sealed chambers where darkness accumulates like dust over altars no living hand remembers how to consecrate. In Rome, grass grows through cracks in Mithraeum floors, while above them, followers of Christ worship in churches built from temple stones, their prayers rising toward heaven through air that once carried Persian hymns and the smoke of bull's blood offered to cosmic mysteries. Veterans who once gathered for divine meals are buried in catacombs, whose Christian symbols replace the 7-pointed stars and cosmic wheels that mark their great achievements. Their sons raised in a faith that teaches them to fear the very gods their fathers served with devotion deeper than military oath. For 1,000 years, the god has slept beneath European soil like a divine Rip Van Winkle, his temples standing as silent riddles to the ages that stumble upon them. Medieval builders occasionally break through into strange painted caves during construction projects, their torches revealing chambers whose purpose defies explanation. Stone benches arranged for invisible diners, walls covered with astronomical charts that map forgotten heavens, relief sculptures showing a youth killing a bull for reasons no surviving text explains. These intrusions terrify Christian workers, who quickly seal the openings with blessed mortar and iron crosses, declaring the space's demon lairs too dangerous for human habitation. Farmers ploughing fields above buried sanctuaries sometimes unearth carved stones showing mysterious scenes. A god in Phrygian cap plunging his dagger into a cosmic bull's throat, torchbearers flanking the scene with flames raised and lowered, scorpions and serpents participating in drama, whose meaning has vanished as completely as the civilization that created it. Most fragments become foundation blocks for churches and houses, their sacred images face down in unholy earth, or grinding stones that reduce divine faces to lime powder for Christian mortar. The god's scattered body fertilizes the very faith that destroyed his living worship. Through the steady hands of medieval scribes, pieces of the mysteries endure, hidden within critiques that sought to brand the religion as perilous temptation. Tertullian's furious denunciations survive when the practices he condemns have been forgotten for centuries. His descriptions of Mithraic ceremonies serving as unintentional preservation of rituals whose living tradition died with the last initiated father. Augustine's theological attacks on Persian dualism maintain theological memory of beliefs no longer believed, scholarly curiosity accidentally accomplishing what religious devotion could not achieve. The Renaissance brings systematic investigation to replace superstitious avoidance. In 1599, workers renovating Rome's San Clemente Basilica hear their picks break through into impossible emptiness, torchlight revealing a perfectly preserved temple from another age. The ceiling still gleams with golden stars on midnight blue paint, that survived 15 centuries of darkness, while stone benches line the walls as if waiting for congregants who will never return. At the chamber's eastern end, the god still plunges his dagger into the bull's throat, his marble face turned away in eternal sorrow and determination that no Christian sculptor ever quite captured in crucifixion scenes. The discovery electrifies Renaissance Rome like lightning striking the Vatican dome. Artists sketch the mysterious reliefs for wealthy patrons fascinated by ancient mysteries, while scholars debate the chamber's purpose and the identity of its bull-slaying deity. Cardinal Baronius declares the find evidence of demonic corruption that presaged Christianity's triumph, yet his detailed descriptions preserve architectural details that illuminate the underground religion's sophisticated theology. Even condemnation serves resurrection when it records what admiration might forget. What had once been accident becomes science in the Enlightenment's hands. When London workmen dig in the Walbrook in 1726, their shovels strike carved stone that rises from the soil like hidden wealth dredged from the river's bed. The Mithraeum they uncover contains sculptures of impossible beauty. A marble head of the god, with his Phrygian cap still bearing traces of red paint, his eyes gazing at something beyond mortal comprehension that 16 centuries of burial could not dim. The National Museum displays the finds like relics of an alien civilization, visitors marveling at artistic achievement that challenges assumptions about primitive pagan religion. What theological truths did these temples preserve? Why did initiates meet in artificial caves decorated with astronomical precision? How could a religion practiced from Scotland to Syria leave no sacred texts, no theological treatises, only silent stones and empty chambers? The questions multiply faster than answers, each discovery revealing new mysteries about mysteries that guarded their secrets too well for historical reconstruction. Rail construction in the 19th century does more than reshape landscapes of travel. At Heidenheim in Germany, workers open the earth to reveal 7 Mithraea clustered in one Roman settlement, each chamber keeping its own memory. In one, the remains of a shared meal, chicken and pig consumed 16 centuries earlier, linger like Pompeii's final feast. In another, piles of coins, left in trust to a god who could not shield his followers from history's advance, shine in the soil where they were never retrieved. At Carnuntum on the Danube, the very Mithraeum Diocletian once dedicated comes to light, its inscription still proclaiming the god, patron of the empire. An empire that survived its protector for scarcely a century. The chamber endures almost untouched. Oil lamps still resting in their niches, ceremonial vessels lined neatly on the altars, as though the fathers might return tomorrow to finish what was left undone. But the dust blanketing every surface tells the real story. Those fathers died 15 centuries past, their wisdom sinking into graves even Christian records could not trace. With every find, the mystery grows even as scholars find their curiosity rewarded. Today's seekers, armed not with ritual but with academic degrees, chase the god through manuscripts and museum cases, publishing works that substitute for the forbidden scriptures of the past. Their debates on cosmic imagery fill conference halls, where echoes of Latin mingle with arguments stitched together from fragments like bones rejoined into a fossilized beast. Still, something essential remains forever lost. The lived experience of initiation, the brotherhood forged in shared ordeals, the cosmic wisdom transmitted through whispered instruction from father to spiritual son. What survives tells more of the mysteries than many initiates ever knew, yet it cannot revive the change that came when men descended into consecrated night and rose as warriors of light. The god's likeness endures, but his soul withdrew with the last servant who carried hidden truths into tombs overshadowed by other faiths. In underground chambers scattered across 3 continents, oil lamps wait in eternal readiness for hands that will never return to light them. Stone benches maintain their patient vigil for initiates who will never gather again for communion meals that transformed bread and wine into cosmic substance. Mithras still kills his bull in endless repetition, divine dagger frozen at the moment of salvation, divine face turned away in sorrow that encompasses not only the necessary slaying, but also the religion's ultimate fate. Preserved in stone, understood in fragments, yet forever beyond resurrection by any power save the faith that originally gave it life. The bull's blood flows eternally in marble veins, but the living stream that nourished souls through 7 grades of ascent has turned to dust no devotion can revive. Mithras awakens from stone to find himself immortal but alone, preserved but powerless, remembered but no longer believed. A divine artifact in humanity's museum of abandoned certainties, staring forever at secrets lost with the last man who knew their meaning.